Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book review. Today, I'm going to be covering this book, The Solace of Open Spaces, by Gretel Ehrlich. It's a pleasant book. First published in 1985. This copy I bought for $6 at La Playa Books in San Diego. It also has a little only bit of writing in it that I found. Madeline, 2005. A previous owner. This book is about a woman in the film industry who has left LA to find herself, and in doing so finds a home in Wyoming where she effectively goes native. This earlier version of Wyoming, one from at least 40 years ago, is still a frontier, and there are a lot of aspects of it. I don't know if they're still true or not, but she writes about it, or rather, she wrote about this version of Wyoming with love in her voice. The book opens with a few lines from a Joseph Brodsky that says, "Life's a freewheeling vendor, occiput penis knee, and geography blended with time equals destiny." And then it opens with a short story, or a chapter is a better word for what these are. It opens with a chapter titled The Solace of Open Spaces, which is also the title of the book. It's indicative of the tone and the mood for the rest of the book, and I'm going to try and find a paragraph, a passage that really illustrates that, so bear with me for a second. To live and work in this kind of open country with its 100-mile views is to lose the distinction between background and foreground. When I asked an older ranch hand to describe Wyoming's openness, he said, "It's all a bunch of nothing, wind and rattlesnakes. And so much of it you can't tell where you're going or where you've been, and it don't make much difference. John, a sheepman I know, is tall and handsome and has an explosive temperament. He has a perfect intuition about people and sheep. They call him High Pockets because he's so long-legged. His graceful stride matches the distances he has to cover. He says, 'Open space hasn't affected me at all. It's all the people moving in on it.' The huge ranch he was born on takes up much of one county and spreads into another state. To put 100,000 miles on his pickup in 3 years and never leave home is not unusual. A friend of mine has an aunt who ranched on Powder River and didn't go off her place for 11 years. When her husband died, she quickly moved to town, bought a car, and drove across the states to see what she'd been missing. I came here 4 years ago. I had not planned to stay, but I couldn't make myself leave. John, the sheep man, put me to work immediately. It was spring and shearing time. For 14 days of 14 hours each, we moved thousands of sheep through sorting corrals to be sheared, branded, and deloused. I suspect that my original motive for coming here was to lose myself in new and unpopulated territory. Instead of producing the numbness I thought I wanted, life on the sheep ranch woke me up. The vitality of the people I was working with flushed out what had become a hallucinatory rawness inside me. I threw away my clothes and bought new ones. I cut my hair. The arid country was a clean slate. Its absolute indifference steadied me." So that's kind of the style of writing she uses throughout the book. That wasn't too continuous passages. There was about a page in between them. Another good example, despite the desolate look, there's a coziness to living in this state. There are so few people, only 470,000, that ranchers who buy and sell cattle know one another statewide. The kids who choose to go to college usually go to the state's one university in Laramie. Hired hands work their way around Wyoming in a lifetime of hirings and firings. And despite the physical separation, people stay in touch, often driving 2 or 3 hours to another ranch for dinner. And that really describes it. There is that open space that she really instills in the writing. A town isn't really a town, but a ranch that brings in business and people in the hundreds, or maybe only 100 people, but it brings in families, homeschools, or one-room schoolhouses. It brings mechanics, it brings shepherds, ranchers, cowboys, veterinarians, everything on this one operation. And that's what those towns are. Those small towns at the time of writing were ranch operations, really. And I think she avoids writing in a flowery, overly descriptive manner, which kind of fits the short abruptness of the way people in this Wyoming that she sees speak. And that's in one of the other chapters as well, or at the end of the first chapter. Descriptive words are dropped, even verbs. A cowboy looking over a corral full of horses will say to a wrangler, "Which one needs road?" People hold back their thoughts in what seems to be a dumbfounded silence, then erupt with an excoriating perceptive remark. Language, so compressed, becomes metaphorical. In a way, it reminds me a lot of how Garrison Keillor describes Lake Wobegon in his fictional town. People are quiet, they only say a few things, and one person in News from Lake Wobegon even describes it as feeling like he's dumb. Rather, when he goes to the Northeast, people think that slowness of thought is a sign of unintelligence rather than a sign of just thoughtfulness and deliberateness with their words. And she doesn't have that kind of condescending attitude towards it. She has a very open-minded attitude. She wants to learn from these people. She wants to become part of them. And the stories throughout the book kind of describe that she is all these ways in which she is becoming native, that she is finding a new home. Yeah, it's a fun book. I bought it, like I said, for $6 at La Playa Books in San Diego. I've reread it a couple times, and I was rereading it just the last 24 hours to prepare for this video. And I read through an entire chapter and a half at a coffee shop while just having some coffee in the morning. And I lost track of time. I was there for much longer than I thought I would be. And it was because this book just held me captive. I started looking things up in it just to see, oh, is this part of history real? Is that, what's that word that she's referencing? And it all just kind of blended together. You lose track of time in a way similar to the way that she describes people losing track of time in the book, in that version of Wyoming that she experiences. She writes about a Wyoming that's open and alone and empty and comfortable. Not unlike New Mexico in some ways, but even less populated than New Mexico. I think if you want a perspective on the West from a previous generation, but still relatively modern, this is the kind of book you want to read, The Solace of Open Spaces. And what's better about it is that it's not long. It's only about 130 pages. And It's a quick read, but I think more than a quick read, it's a thoughtful read. I think if you like this kind of memoir, if you like stories about the West, this is the book for you. It's a homey feel you get from this book. So yeah, my name is Wild Stag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book review.